Hi, and welcome back to my Pokemon family tree, where I'm trying to chart how each Pokemon is related to each other. In this video, I'm covering most of the marine life of Pokemon, which is mostly made up of water types. I've had to make one big change to my chart. In previous videos, I'd covered what I'd called the invertebrate branch, but I've now changed this to the more accurate Protostomia. Invertebrates, or animals without spines, is an accurate term to describe this group, but not every invertebrate is in the Protostomia group. In this video, we'll be covering a different group to what this is, Duertostomia. Hi, this is me from the future. I think this is meant to be pronounced Deuterostomia, not Duertostomia, which is mainly made up of two main branches, echinoderms and chordates. In our world, echinoderms typically inhabit the ocean floor and are very unique creatures. They have very high levels of symmetry, they can reproduce asexually, and can regenerate their limbs. As well as this, most of them all have spiky or rough skin, which is where their name comes from. Echina, as in the animal echidna for spikes, and derm, as in a dermatologist, meaning skin. Fittingly, the earliest one of these that we see is Cradilly, who's based off the sea lily. After this, we get the two starfish Pokemon, Starmie, who's a regular generic starfish, and Toxapex, who's a crown of thorns starfish. Both of these Pokemon actually have abilities that reflect their echinoderm status. Starmie has Natural Cure, and Toxapex has Regenerator, both which reflect the regenerative abilities of this type of animal. The final two echinoderms reflect the limbless variety. Pincurchin is a sea urchin and is covered in spikes, whilst Pyukumuku is a sea cucumber, an animal which is capable of shooting its guts out when it's under stress from a predator. After this, we get to the fish of Pokemon, the first one that we see being Electros. Whilst Electros looks like an eel and is based off one, I would say that it's more closely related to a lamprey. A lamprey is a jawless fish, which, as the name suggests, doesn't have a jaw. We can see that Electros also has this feature, and they look really similar, so I'm including him here. From here, we can see how bones begin to develop in these animals. The next group of fish all have skeletons made out of cartilage, and this grouping includes manta rays and sharks. Mantine is obviously the only ray-based Pokemon, while Sharpedo is the only typical shark of Pokemon. However, there is also Garchomp, who is very clearly a shark, but is based off the mythical land shark. We don't have these in real life, so I've put Garchomp here alongside Sharpedo. They're two Pokemon which are very similar looking, both having stars on the front of their head and even sharing the ability Rough Skin. It's most likely that Garchomp and its family are Sharpedos that have been able to adapt to land. After this, we move on to the actual bony fish with real skeletons. This can be divided into two groups, ray-finned fish, which includes most of the traditional fish that you would think of, and lobe-finned fish, which only includes Relicanth and will lead on to most land-based vertebrates. Relicanth itself is a coelacanth, and as it's the first and only Pokemon in this group, you can think of it as the precursor to every other land and air-based Pokemon that we have yet to cover. Within the ray-finned fish, we start out with the actual eels of Pokemon, the two Clamperl evolutions and Wug Trio. Luminion, the freshwater angelfish, is also the closest relative to these. After that, we get onto a lot of generic fish-based Pokemon. We have the Sardine in Wishiwashi. Seaking has a lot of features of a koi carp, as does Tatsugiri, especially when you consider it has different coloured variations, much like how koi carp are bred and are very colourful. Finally, there are two Pokemon that both share an origin and look very similar, Whiscash and Dondozo, who are both obviously catfish. On the chart, you'll see that Veluza and Milotic are next. Veluza is probably something from the cod or hake family, especially considering it's from the region based off Spain, and hake is a very popular fish in that area. Milotic is based off a giant oarfish, which is absolutely massive. It's also a lot more terrifying than Milotic is. It's important to remember that when you're looking at this chart, not all lines are to scale. Dondozo and Wishcash are really closely related, but Veluza and Milotic are not. There aren't as many Pokemon as there are animals, but these two just happen to be the two closest related to each other. After this, we get onto a group of fish known as the Percomorpha, who I think are where we really start to see diversification take place. For starters, we have the two dragon types, Kingdra and Dragalge, who are based off seahorses and sea dragons respectively. After this, there's two Pokemon who are weirdly connected, Barraskewda, who's ridiculously fast and based off the slick and agile Barracuda, and Stunfisk, a flatfish or a flounder who is known for being very slow and very passive. This group also includes the discus fish Lovedisc and the two Pokemon based off Bass, Basculin and its evolution, Basculegion. Lantern, similarly to Milotic, is a much cuter version of its real-life counterpart, the anglerfish, which has adapted to the depths of the ocean by developing a way of creating its own light. Alomomola is based off a giant sunfish, which shares its very flat but very tall body, whilst Bruxish is based off a triggerfish, which explains why it looks so ugly. The final two Pokemon on this grouping are the Quillfish line, with its Hisuian evolution, Overquill, who obviously are based off pufferfishes. Those are all of the fish of Pokemon, however there's still one Pokemon who I was slightly confused on, Gyarados. It has a lot of traits of different fish, and I didn't know where to put it. I'd actually included it with the dragons, but I wanted to know if people thought that this was the right idea. With this video, I've tried making it a bit more detailed and a bit longer. If you've liked this format, please let me know and try and check out some of my other videos. Thank you.